All right, everyone. Now let's go ahead and import some data into R, right? It's sometimes called importing, sometimes called loading. It's the same. You have some data from somewhere and you want to get it into R to do something with it. In the social sciences, often, data sets are made available in Excel format. So it could be a CSV file or XLS file. Other times, data is made available in formats that correspond to certain statistical packages like Stata, SPSS, or in R. So whatever the format is, there are different commands to import them, and you can also convert the type across different versions. So in this section here, we're going to focus on actually importing an Excel type data set, which is going to be a common case for many. So let's go ahead and go to the online course, go to section 3.4, where we cover loading data sets. And we provide a link here that will take you to a online folder, a so-called GitHub repository that makes all the data sets that we're going to use in this course available. Click on course, then click on students, and actually click download. So it's going to download it and it's going to ask me where to put it. Now I'm going to choose a folder here on my drive. And I really recommend to you to choose a folder wisely and keep it really organized. I'm going to call it course material video, and I'm going to save the data set in this folder. All right. If you choose a project folder, as I said, choose it wisely because we're going to accumulate documents there, data sets, scripts, and so forth. So you want to save everything in one place. And you want to keep track of where everything is located. But whenever we do something in R, we tell R where to look for the particular file. So that's why that's important. All right, let's go ahead, open up R, and actually start importing the data we just downloaded, right? So I opened a new script here and called it 02_week. Make sure to save that script as soon as you can and constantly keep saving it as you work. You don't want to lose any of your work because you didn't save it, right? So go to File, Save As, and save the script in the same folder that you've been working on and or where you saved the data set that we just downloaded. Okay, we have the script here. I have some code prepared. I'm going to walk you through it. So before we're going to load the data, I have to explain something important to you, which is packages. R works with packages. Packages are basically user-written functions or commands, things we want to do that other people developed that we first have to load in R to then execute it, right? Think of packages like ink for a pen, right? So first you have to buy the ink, you have to put the ink into the pen, and then we use the pen to write. So in this sort of metaphor, right, writing is writing code or doing analysis. The ink is the package, and putting the ink into the pen is loading the package. So this is what we got to do for many things in R. There is what's called base R, which is a selection of functions that just come with the language, right? We don't need to install it. And a lot of people like using base R functions. Now, over time, more and more user-written packages came out, and they really facilitate data analysis. So throughout this course, I'm going to be using a lot of those packages, especially packages collected under the tidyverse family of packages, so to say. So you will hear a lot more about them. So today, we're going to use a function called read Excel, which surprisingly is going to help us read Excel, which in this case means import the Excel file into R. And this read Excel function is part of the read Excel package. And the package read Excel is part of the family of packages of tidyverse. I know it sounds all quite complicated, but it'll become a lot clearer in a second here. So if to use this function to tell R to import the data, we first have to install the corresponding package and then load it. And this is what we do in row 6 here. So we use the command install.packages, and then in brackets, we call on tidyverse, right? If we do that, execute it, R will install the package. And on my drive here, it was already installed, so that's why the error message came up. But on your drive, if you haven't installed it yet, you will see some code in the console that shows you that various packages are being installed. Now, secondly, we want to then load the package, which is the command library, and then in brackets tidyverse. So for many things that we're going to be doing in the future, we first install a particular package and then load it. Now, the important thing to remember here is that we only install packages once on a certain computer, right? If you've done it once, you don't have to do it again. You just load the package that you need to execute, but you don't have to reinstall it again. You don't have to, re-download it again, so to say. So that's important. So we install the package tidyverse, we load it, and now we're going to use the function readxl from the package readxl. So the readxl double colon just means that it tells R that this function is part of the package. Now, in many cases, we don't have to tell R that, this function is part of this particular package. But as R keeps growing and more people write functions and packages, it's sometimes helpful to do so R doesn't get confused about which function we mean, because sometimes the names are overlapping. So in this particular case, we actually do have to tell R which package we mean. Now, we use the readxl and then brackets, and then we put the location of where we saved our data set. So I put here the path of where the data set is saved on my local drive, right? And then I put the name of the Excel file, and that's very important, the ending, so the format, and it's an XLSX file, right? Put that. Also note, it's very important that you have forward slashes. In the European context, often we have backward slashes, but you need to convert them to forward slashes. You can do that by going to Edit, Replace and Find, and then look for a backward slash and replace it with a forward slash. So this is sometimes a helpful shortcut. So if you've done all that, we can run this. And you see in the output window down here, something happened, right? We have some text here, we have some numbers, it kind of looks like a data set. We have some columns as well, but it just appeared in the console, so there's nothing we can really do with it. Why is that? Well, I have to now introduce an also very important concept in R, which is objects. Everything in R is an object. So if we want to import data, let's say from an Excel file, we have to tell R that we want this data to be inside an object, and that object is going to be a data set. Or in the R language, it's going to be a data frame, right? So with whatever we want to do, later on, we're going to do tables of figures, or we're going to recode something. Every time we're going to tell R a particular name for an object that we want this thing that we're creating to be stored in, right? So in this case, we're going to create a name for a data set, a data frame in R language, which is going to be the Excel file. And we're going to do that here in row 15. So we're going to call this data set students, right? Just like the Excel file. And then we're going to use the smaller and dash sign here, which is in the R language basically the same as an equal sign. And then we're going to use the function again, just like before. We're going to run it. And we see now on the upper right-hand corner, we have an object now listed in the environment, and it's called students. So this is what we created. R now recognizes that we introduced a new object, and it actually has 1,000 ops. Ops is short for observations, and 23 variables. And variables refers to the number of columns in that data set. Observations refer to the number of rows in the data set, right? Data sets sometimes are called a matrix, but a matrix just means something that is organized in rows and columns, right? So if something appears here in our environment, you can actually click on it, and then a new tab opens in the window, and we can check out what this data frame looks like. And we see here, we have lots of columns. Each column is actually a student in this data set. And we have lots of variables here, columns. Sorry, I misspoke. So each row is actually a student in this data set, right? So we have, for example, the faculty where students are enrolled, the courses that they're enrolled in, their age, their country of birth, various measures for their grades for particular years, their life satisfaction, whether they like their course, whether they're in a relationship, their sex, the term that they're in, the university that they're studying at, and whether they're working class. So this is the basic data set here, which we've now sort of successfully imported into R. Now, if you in R import lots of data sets, which you can do, and is often the case that you import various data sources at the same time, it gets very annoying specifying the direction on your computer every time, right? The location on your computer where you want to import from. Now, they have a command for this to make this a little bit more convenient, which is called setwd, which stands for set working directory. So you can use this function and then just put the location of the folder that you want to use throughout this project, right? Where all of your files are saved. So if I run that, R knows where to look for the future commands. So let's try this out. The same command, read Excel, but now I just tell them the name of the file rather than the whole path to the location, right? We give it a different name, students1, and we see here's a new object that popped up, student1, students1, but it's like the exact same thing that we did before. Now, if we want to save the data set, we can do so in an R format, which often speeds up reading time, right? When we import, when we keep working on this later and want to import some data, we might as well import it from an R format, which sort of is a little quicker than importing data every time from Excel. So to do that, we use the same save function. It's called save, parentheses, and then you put in the name of the object where the data is contained. In this case, the data frame students over here. And you give the file a name. And in this case, file equals to students_r, and our data frames are called rdata.rdata. So let's run that. And if we now go to our folder, all right, we actually see that the new file popped up here, and it's the students data set in the R format. There's some conventions in R that are important. You can, for example, use the pond sign here to comment. And I really recommend commenting excessively. Why? Because your future self won't remember what you were doing while you were working on the project, right? If I leave this file for a couple of days or a week, I'll have a hard time remembering like what I did. So this commenting function is really important to sort of help yourself out and keep track of what you're doing. Also, if you sometimes share your code with team members or colleagues or other students, you know, they will be able to understand much better what you were doing in each step. So that's really a really important convention. Always commenting your code and keeping structure, organization, and clarity in each step of the way. Okay, this is how you import data into R.